Welcome to TechWire, a conversation about government, politics, and technology. My name is Christina Gagnier, and today I'm joined by Gary Schick, the Director of Partnerships and Alliances with Quest. Gary, thank you so much for joining me today.
Hey, thank you, Christina.
So here at the CIO Academy, one of the things that we've been diving into is just trends in the IT industry. There's been a lot of conversation about workforce development, the leadership skills gap, but we're interested in what's next.
Boy, that's a big question, obviously, on that side. But I guess from our perspective, in terms of trends that we see out there, there's been a tremendous transition, obviously, in technology in terms of consumption models and operational models in terms of how people are actually working with technology, how they're deploying it. We've been around for about 30 years, headquartered here in Sacramento, and really listening to really what our customers are looking to achieve and the business outcome that they're looking for, and it's really allowed us to understand, what technologies and things out there help them enable those pieces. So there's been a big shift from traditional IT, I'll call it, where people would buy things potentially and then manage them themselves. And now there's obviously new models, I'll call them cloud or the cloud first kind of mentality. But that's a different consumption model where people don't necessarily have to own things and manage them on their own anymore. Cloud first is really a mentality or a thought process about, hey, how do I as a service organization really deliver capabilities to my internal customers, my external customers, and the options that go with those, and really finding the one that meets best for you.
And how has that changed your partnerships with government?
Yeah, the government, that's really an interesting, and the issues that they're facing right now, obviously here in California with the cloud first thought, and what does that mean here? There's the allure of the cloud, which I think is, hey, we all know that we've heard about, the different cost advantages. You've got different, predictability in terms of costs in those pieces right there. But you've also got the flip side of that, right? So there's different workflows, there's different processes. Cloud is not the right answer all the time up there. It's really trying to get an understanding of, getting again back to what the customer is really looking to achieve. Just because you can do the cloud doesn't necessarily mean that you should. And through our kind of assessment-led strategy and workshops, we really kind of get in just because you can do it. Hey, is this really the right thing for you to do up here? And I think the government agencies are really focused on that as well. How do you consume this? Is it right for my organization with my legacy resources that I have and the development of those people? You talked about that earlier as well. And that's really among the things that we're helping with, really helping understand, hey, how does this fit? If it does fit, how does it work with the organization?
So we've discussed today projects like Cal Cloud, mobile workforce, all these things that seem to be seemingly shifting with the new generation that is assuming roles in government leadership and government service. But we're also interested in just, what's next. You've had the scope of seeing, what's been happening in government. Is there anything that you're particularly excited about or something that you want to highlight in your own work?
Yeah, and I guess another big question, but I think, what we're seeing, obviously the mobility and the mobile lifestyles that people are living has really, I think, impacted us all. I presume you have a mobile device and you probably have work things on there and you probably have personal things on there. And just how people go about their lives now is way different than it was even a few years back on that side. So mobility and that always on kind of thought where there's just an expectation. It doesn't necessarily have to be during the workday. I want to have access to work when I want it. And during my workday, I'm often checking personal things also that may be interspersed throughout my day out there. So it's really, how do you keep people enabled, but you have to separate. There's that expectation of privacy kind of thought that goes with that. And how do I, work with my internal customers and my other users up there to kind of make sure that is kind of meeting their needs, and also the data that goes with it. I talked about the always on kind of thought up there. When I go onto my mobile device, I want to log into an application. I want it when I want it, and I want to make sure that that's always there. There's expectation of always on. So we're seeing a lot of activity and conversations around disaster recovery as a company, business continuity, and going into, like I said, a lot of workshops and assessment about what is my some technical kind of terms, but RTO and RPO, right? How old can that data be? When is that last recovery point that I have those pieces right there? And that really drives a lot of companies into making sure that their consumers and what have you are connected. It's always on. We've got that thought. So business impact analysis, disaster recovery, business continuity, lots and lots of topics that everyone's faced with, and obviously including the government.
You mentioned some topics that are top of mind for many in the IT community. You mentioned privacy, but also the flip side of that is cybersecurity, and that's becoming more and more of a public issue. How does a company like yours, in your partnerships, work with government to make sure that as they are making these decisions about going into the cloud or mobile workforce, whatever the case may be, that those are sound decisions from a cybersecurity perspective?
That's a great question, and that's obviously topical. I think it's in the mobility and security are probably the top two. If you look at the list of priorities for the government, it impacts everyone up there. It's a huge, huge issue. It's very personal a lot of times to companies that have them there, but how do you deal with, like I said, the reality of wanting people to have access to the certain information that's there, while at the same time also securing the assets of the company and protecting those. So very, very heavily involved in security reviews, assessments, policies. There is no one size fits all. In these conversations, it's very personal to that organization, and I think that getting involved in that business outcome conversation is really, really important for the government agencies. Also to understand the people who are going to be touching their data, and then also connecting with their service provider, whether that's internal, whether it's a different department, different agency, and what have you. It's very important to be self-aware, as well as being able to understand, how are we going to actually address these things, balancing out privacy as part of that also on that side as well.
Well, Gary, thank you so much for sitting down with me today and sharing your expertise.
Christina, thank you very much, and appreciate the opportunity.
And thank you to our audience for once again joining us in a conversation about government, politics, and technology.